All right. Welcome back to Faith Family United Church of Christ Bible Study. We are doing a study we're calling Studies in Luke, and we're going through the book of Luke. We're currently at chapter 7 in Luke, and so let's go ahead and get started. In chapter 7, starting at verse 1, we're looking at just so you know, I'm doing it a little different. Instead of doing a PowerPoint, I decided to throw up the scripture on the thing. So
that's all right.
Those
that way
people,
you don't have to worry about the Bibles.
Yeah, that way the people at home can also see the scripture that we're talking about. So if you do have a pew Bible, and I always say this to our people, these pew Bibles, these are the church Bibles, and if you want to take one of these home with you, just take it home, because it's your church. It's your church. This is your Bible. So if you need a Bible to take home with you, grab one of the pew Bibles and take it home with you. And just don't throw your stuff on the floor like I did. Okay. So if you have a pew Bible, it's page, let's see, right here we go. 896 in your pew Bible. And the pew Bible is, just so you know, the translation is the Revised Standard. It's a little bit older, but it's the Revised Standard version. And I have a newer version of that, and it is called the New Revised Standard version. It's just a little bit, they discover different things, and they find out ways that they can tweak the translation just a little bit, and that's the New Revised Standard. And they actually just came out with a new Revised Standard. Some of us, I also have a new International Version, and that's the NIV that come out in 1984, I think. And then they've got a new International Version. It's called today's New International Version. So lots of what happens is scholars come and they discover new things, and such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they go through that and they translate that. And a lot of the scrolls that they found in the Dead Sea is goes back and they weigh it against what they translated before, or the older versions that they have, and they look at them. And of course the Dead Sea Scrolls, that community, the Qumran community, was probably around the time of Christ when that community was. So they take all the Bibles, or the books of the Bible and other books that they have there, and they weigh them against the other translations that they had before, and compare them, and which sounds more. And you'll get books that kind of like additions in a book. You write a book, and then 5-10 years later you want to add something to it, so you do a revised version, or you update the version where you put in a new paragraph or a new sentence. It's kind of that kind of thing. So they come back and so that's where we are, and I gave you guys time enough to get in here. Jackie, we're on 896. We're going to Luke chapter 7.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Luke chapter 7, the first one is faith of the Centurion. Faith of the Centurion. Jesus finished his sayings. Of course, this is Jesus coming off of the Sermon on the Plain, or Sermon on the Level Place. And so after that, he's finished and he's saying all this to the people who were listening. He entered Capernaum. So he's traveling. He stops at the plain. He teaches his lesson. He has his sermon, and now he's traveled on. And there a centurion's servant, whom his master valued highly, was sick and about to die. The centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and to heal his servant. When they had come to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly to him, "This man deserves to have you do this because he loves our nation and has built our synagogues." So Jesus went to them. He was not afraid. He was not far from the house that the centurion sent his family. I'm sorry, I'm losing my focus here. Centurion sent friends to say to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning to the crowd following him, he said, "I tell you, I have not found such great faith even in Israel." Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well.
Excellent.
What do you think about that?
I'm impressed. Even the guy that's the security guard, or the guy on top of you, as he says, loves our people, build our synagogue.
He was also in Matthew 8, right? 8, 5,
Yeah,
13.
Matthew 8:12 is the other version of this. That's what I like about my little Bible here on the computer. This here, right before every story or verse, it shows the parallel verse in a different gospel. And then I can also do this here. You see this word slave, and it tells you the Greek word, and it tells you how it's being used there. And
The Bible I have is a cross chain Bible, so that's the same thing.
So what do you think it means that he says, "I'm a man under authority"? What is the centurion trying to say?
He's in the army.
Okay.
He's under authority. He has a hierarchy system that he lives under. People over, people under.
People over, people under. Okay.
Well, he puts the cards on the table. He's not saying I'm part of you, or I'm part of the emperor, I'm the king.
You're saying
But what is he saying there?
he represents Rome.
He represents Rome, but who is he trying to say Jesus is?
A higher authority.
He is a higher
So, like,
authority.
if you are, for example, in the army, you are
A
a
sergeant.
non-commissioned officer, you would not invite an officer to your home generally.
No.
I mean, if you become friends with them or things like that, there's a little bit of a socially norms where you just don't do things like that.
We go through this in our clergy teachings and training and everything. They call it boundary training, where you gotta draw boundaries for some why you're friends and everything, but I'm the pastor, you're the congregant. We're not gonna go out on a date. We're not gonna do things like that. Or of course not me because I'm married. But anyway, I do sometimes. Friday nights I do date one of my.
Honey, after all these years,
I'm
you still love
confessing to
him?
you.
You date what?
I date one of the congregants on Friday nights.
Me?
Yes, you.
It's date night.
Well, I'm glad you get a date night.
We're not
Because you
going
go
to
to
tell
sleep
anybody.
early on Fridays, so maybe I'm missing something.
But yes, so he's saying that Jesus has the authority to do this.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, he's saying, "Don't even come into my house. I'm not worthy to have you in my house." What was he? That's kind of him submitting to Jesus.
Right.
So, and in that Jesus, that's where Jesus sees his faith. I know you can do this. I'm submitting to you to do this. You don't have to come into my house to do this. because I know you have the great power, the great authority. So I think that's the big takeaway from here, is this idea of submitting to someone that has the authority. Can you think of any way that we do that in the church?
Well, I think that when we serve, sometimes some of us may forget that sometimes. It's a good important thing to learn, but like when we go to Trinity and we have all these people, like we're there to serve, so we're submitting to them and we're there for them, and you know, I think that's important that we remember that and we keep that kind of thought. So we're kind of submitting to that, not necessarily authority, because we don't really believe in this hierarchy anymore. We believe we're brothers, but yet I do think that we are submitting to service.
I think, yeah.
That means we're allowing ourselves to be uncomfortable sometimes in situations that maybe we don't think are maybe even safe for some people, you know. But yet we're submitting to that because we're trusting. So I do think that we do submit to that kind of service.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be your idea of that is the idea of ministry, which I've said this before. The word minister is actually comes from French meaning to serve, to be a servant. So when you have a ministry, that means, like Cindy said, you're serving people.
Well, the French word for bureaucratic offices, you know,
It's ministry.
Ministry.
Yeah. So you're not supposed to. I mean, you're given certain authority, and you know, but yet unfortunately, people think when they get into positions like that authority gives them power, and so they seek that power and instead of seeking to serve people. So that's a great point.
I think this is something we do good here too, is we submit to the greater good of what the church is. We don't always agree or always get along, but yet when we realize that this is what the path we need to take, we all rally behind it and go with it. Even if it's not something that we were like, I don't know if I'm 100% there, but yet we will support it. So we're submitting to the mission. And I think that's something we do well here as a group of people. When we decide we're going to do something, we're going to do it.
I agree with you. That's great. But I was looking for something just a little bit different. When I ask you, I say, how do we do this idea of hierarchy, this idea of military people, how you have your rank structure, and then not only do you have your rank structure, but you have like a parallel. So this is the enlisted people, and this is the officers. They're in a rank system, and then the officers outrank the enlisted people. But understanding that that's authority, not power. So how do we see that in our
The
church?
Centurion here is used to authority. He's used to rank and file. That's what he's used to. And he's saying, Jesus, you outrank me. I believe you can do these things. Now, I believe my generals can do things too, and I fight for them, but I believe you can do something. In church here, we're going to go to Genesis, going to go way back. Right? In Genesis, God created everything. But more than that, God, I am. He always was. He is. He's the present tense of infinity, I think. So God was here before creation. And that every Christian, if they get that in their mind, understands that there is a hierarchy in our church. God is the hierarchy.
Yes.
Not man, not pastors, not, you know what I mean? And I think that's why in your church, you are or our church, my church, we are very accepting of ideas, and we talk them out, and we adopt them, or we discard them. But we can't discard God.
Well, I think too in our church we lean on our pastor for our liturgical guidance, our spiritual guidance. And we have a council that we kind of depend on for our fiscal guidance. So I think there is hierarchy in the church, although we're collaborative and we're communal. you have to have somebody that eventually is gonna lead, right? So.
Well,
um,
and that's the idea of authority,
Yeah.
right? So when you have authority, right, you are given that.
Mm-hmm.
All the people say, we are going to submit to you under this authority,
Mm-hmm.
meaning you have the expertise to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to, and that's kind of like what he's saying. I'm a military man. I tell people to go and they do this and do that. So I have that authority. But this falls under your authority, Jesus. And I'm submitting to you. And as unfortunately, I'm going to say this because I'm going to try to make myself look really great. No. But a lot of times pastors, they try to gather all authority when they're not an expert on everything. I mean, that's my big thing. You know, I stay as far away from the money as I can because I'm not an authority on money. And when we found someone that has that as a job, has done that their life, and this is what they can do, guess what? Hey, why don't you take control of this? And we did that. We begged that person to come and take over the financial stuff because, and he runs our accounts and everything, make sure everything gets paid, because we've given him that authority because he is an expert. So we submit our financial stuff to him so that he can do it.
And some pastors will not let go.
And there's other things too. Right now we're going through, Bill is becoming our authority for building this small group that we're talking about. So I'm submitting I'm submitting myself to him to allow him to orchestrate this. Yes, I'm giving my ideas. I'm giving my ideas as a pastor, but I'm not telling him what to do. He's the expert. He's been doing this for years and years. And so he has that authority. We've given him that authority to build this small group setting. So that's what I think is going on here as well. And then I can kind of see where this is going. The idea of giving different people different authorities. And that's why I'm so big on everybody have a ministry. Everybody have something that you can grab a hold of and say, I'm an expert at this, or I do this really well, and take that, go with it. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say when we do the small groups, that authority passes down to the leaders of the small groups.
There you go.
In your home churches, you got to make it happen.
And what Bill's
And God will be there.
what we were talking earlier about the small groups, and it's like Bill will train the small group leaders, and then they go out, and that's where they have the authority over those small groups. He trains them, but he trains them in a way that he's not there all the time, and they have the authority in those small groups to make adjustments. Okay, the lesson was supposed to be this, but we have this issue today, so we're going to kind of do it this way. They have that authority, and then they come back and they talk with Bill and say, hey, this happened with us, and we did this, and then he can distribute it to everybody else. Hey, if you guys run into this situation, and so he has the authority to run it, and then he gives authority. And that's the way this authority, and by distributing the authority like that, it takes away the idea of being power hungry and trying to control everything, because we have people that are educated, and especially if this is their expertise. So this idea of authority is good and biblical, but the idea of trying to accumulate authority is power, trying to accumulate power. So
One thing in the church is you are called. You are called. And God is calling you, or Jesus is calling you. And as such, yes, sir. I'll follow you.
May I ask the question? Sure. In your seminary, have you ever taken a course in psychology where you're told there's boundaries that you must
Oh, yeah.
maintain, otherwise step aside, you're not clergy prepared, you're not
Oh, most definitely, and that's unfortunately, a lot of people think that because I know this really well, then I can talk to anybody, and not understand that I'm not a trained psychologist or psychiatrist, you know. So if I talk to you and I see that you have problems that go beyond me being a friend and being able to counsel you and talk to you, then I need to refer you to someone with a psychology or psychiatry to
Have you ever seen churches where 50 people would walk out the door?
Oh, yeah.
Joe,
Oh, yeah.
have you had that experience?
Oh, I've noticed. I've seen that. I've been a part of
I
it.
mean, why wasn't the seminary, why weren't these, when they're training
Well,
you all?
A lot of churches don't require seminary of their pastors.
yeah.
Oh,
You go
that's
down
right.
to the
That's-
local Baptist church, he may not even have a college degree. He may have just taken
Bible
courses in
certificate.
preaching. So there's a lot of churches when things happen like that, when a problem comes up and there's an issue arising, they don't have the skills to deal with it. So people take sides and factions form, and
Split
don't-
down the middle.
so that's why in the UCC they require that everyone has an MDiv, which is really a doctorate level master's degree. It's 96-hour degree. And in that course, there's a lot of different things that you learn. And then the UCC also requires training too. So that's important to realize how this congregation is different than a lot of others. And like my dad was going to a Baptist church, and the pastor got sick, so he had his 16-year-old son come and preach. And for like a year. So
Wow.
my dad did it and leaving. He was like, so not everyone has the same standards of education that we have here in our congregation.
And that shows the maturity of the pastor. The pastor is there to be for the people. And if I'm not an expert as a pastor, if I'm not the expert on that situation, then I have to defer. I have to give someone else authority to take hold. And here this guy, he's a Roman centurion. Century is 100. He's over 100 men. Not to mention he's over those 100 men. He's under, then there's people under them. So he's probably over at least 200 to 1,000 people under his charge. And so
No, there's 100.
well, there's 100 soldiers.
Then they may have other soldiers.
And
under them.
soldiers,
Yeah, but that's part of the point.
yeah.
Is that he's a warrior.
Mhm.
And this isn't his expertise.
No.
And so he defers to Jesus.
He can kill you.
This is spiritual. This is somebody's help.
And he's got 100 killers. He's got 100 killers in the
The Roman
Group.
Empire.
But no healers. So anyway, okay. So I don't want to beat this dead horse here.
I've never heard this story before.
Really?
But
You
the,
never?
the best part is chapter is verse 13. I don't know if you have it on your screen.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It says, then Jesus, after all this interchange, Jesus says to the centurion, go, let it be done just as you have believed it would. And his servant was healed in that moment. So
I
the
think.
power of belief.
Yeah, the power of belief. You know, but how many of I got to throw Tim Tebow out here. Tim Tebow, right? He's a terrible quarterback.
No.
He stinks. He can't throw a pass to save his life. So what did they did? What did they do to him in Denver? They went and they okay, go ahead, start. Did they have any faith in him? No, they had zero faith in him. They had zero faith in him. And in the week after they said he was the starter, and when he actually started, because there was a bye week there, they traded their best receivers. It's like, we don't even think you're going to be able to do anything, but here, go ahead. And that idea that he couldn't do it, and
Well, you thought
fortunate
he
for
did.
him, he did. He ended up taking a 2-4 team to the playoffs.
And winning. Because
And winning the first playoff game that they won. But the point is, Cindy was pointing out here, that when you believe in someone, when you give someone the authority to do something, you have to believe in them. You have to back them. You have to believe that they can do that. The centurion truly believed, and the result was positive. And
Yeah.
that's a good point.
13's a different person.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Where are we at?
No, it says.
Oh yeah, you're
in the next.
yeah, you're in the widow.
No, 13 says, then Jesus said to the centurion.
Like my Bible. When the Lord saw her heart went out to her, and
Where
he
am
said,
I?
"Don't cry."
I'm on chapter 8. Are you on chapter 8?
No, we're not in chapter 8.
Oh, I'm in the wrong one.
Chapter 7.
Yeah, because it says Jesus went to the
The
village of
confusing thing, Cindy, is that chapter 8 of Matthew.
Okay, that's where I'm at. In
Yeah,
Matthew
you know
8. Okay. In
Okay.
Matthew chapter 8. It does say that to the
She's not
centurion.
even in the right gospel.
But it does say that in Matthew.
in Matthew. It does here. It says, I tell you, I've never found such a great faith in Israel. Then when the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well. So he believed in him, and so same point, just different gospel.
But here's my point too. He didn't have to get baptized. He didn't have to get saved. He didn't have to have a proclamation of faith for his faith to have fruition.
Right.
And that's important too, because he just believed it and it happened. And we sometimes want to put barriers. Oh, you've got to, do you believe? Have you been baptized? Have you, the Apostles' Creed, this, that, and the other thing. Sometimes God's bigger than all that too. In this instance, he was as well. Or she, or it. The him. They, whatever.
I like God's pronouns are God.
Or what?
Or what? Exactly.
Okay, so I think that this story, this passage of scripture here is kind of showing us the idea of what authority is. When we give someone authority, believe in them, believe that they can do that, and great things will happen. But also, when it's not your expertise, it's all right to give someone else authority. And I think those two things kind of go hand in hand. Okay? I guess when our camera person walked out the door, it's 10 o'clock, yeah. So we're gonna stop there. We just got through one story today, but I think we had a really good conversation.
Good conversation.
All right.
Will we be on lesson 5 then next week?
Yes. If we fought, I'm gonna.
We have a Bible study on Easter.
No, we're not gonna have Bible study. We're gonna use that as our fellowship, so it's not gonna be next week, but a week.
That just answered that.
I
Thank
thought
you.
we needed to clear that up.
Yeah,
before we-
next week is Easter, of course, and it's our 5th Sunday, so we'll use that as our fellowship instead of the first way. And then we'll come back and we'll do chapter 7, verses 11 through how far we get.
Okay.
The first Sunday after.
First
Easter.
Sunday of the month.
First Sunday.
Yeah.
Chapter
Alright.
7, you said?
Yes, chapter 7.
Why is that I never learned this in the Presbyterian church?
You never read the Bible.
You played hooky.
No, I was there. I mean, I listened to all the sermons, but I didn't know.
It depends who you're